Hey and welcome, msKIRAspeaks. Before we get started, I ask that you watch the videos till the end, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. We are here for another episode of Our Kind of People, Season 1, Episode 10, Just Desserts. So when the episode opens, we see Angie and Nate hitting a kicking a kid and play on from House Party. Aunt Piggy, she comes in, she asks what's going on, and her and Angela step to the side. We find out that she has just returned from an NA meeting, and they talk about making amends, and she realizes that she's not the only one suffering. She lied to Tyrique about knowing Darius, and she tells Angela not to give up on him. He's a good man, Savannah, and he's worth holding on to. Angela says that Teddy is to blame with all of his secrets. There's a meeting, I believe, later at Leah's for the Graceties Bid week, and Angie says if she sees Teddy, she's going to confront him about blackmailing Aunt P. And Aunt P's like, you will do no such thing. Don't poke the snake. Bide your time. Hold your tongue. If you want to catch a snake, you got to get close enough to pin it down. So then we see Tyrique. He's in the boardroom giving a presentation on skyboxes to Teddy, and I'm assuming those are his investors. And after the presentation is a wrap, he did a really good job. Let's just say that. It seems like he did a really good job. He was really happy about it and in better spirits because, you know, Tyrique's been kind of down in the dumps lately about his father. So after it wraps, Teddy tells Tyrique that Jack has some important papers that he'll urgently need. He asked him to go to the precinct and collect them for him. This needs a personal touch, and his discretion is appreciated. I don't know why. I'm gonna probably say this 10 times in this review. I don't know why Tyrique is still doing anything for Teddy, but I guess he did just, you know, give the skybox pitch, so maybe he feels he still owes him, but whatever. Moving right along, Leah is looking at old pictures of Raymond and Jack when Raymond comes in, and he says, you know, it's hard to imagine him not being around. He asks Leah why Lauren would assume that her and Jack were having an affair, and she tells him that at the Black Diamonds ball, Jack kissed her and Lauren walked in on them and assumed that it was mutual. It was not. Leah says she was embarrassed and Jack was drunk, and she says she should have told him that night, but Raymond was so angry from an argument they had gotten into earlier. And if I think that was also the same night that Lauren got arrested. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. So Raymond says despite what Angela wants to believe, he knows a thing or two about ambush kisses. All is well between them, but Raymond gets a message on his phone, and Leah's trying to get him to put down his phone and, you know, give himself a minute to process after losing someone that he was once so close with. And Raymond says he has no time. He has to issue a press release, notify the board, and meet with the attorneys. And I guess it's then that he realizes that Jack probably had the papers with him for the transfer of shares that night that he passed. So Raymond wants to get a hold of them before Teddy can execute the contract. Sorry, Raymond, Teddy got the jump on that one. So he tells Leah he appreciates her and he gives her a hug, but then, you know, he's got a dash. He's got things to do. So Angela is at Leah's for bid week, and that's the meeting that she mentioned earlier. And one of the ladies is trying to talk to her about being so nervous. And, you know, Angela is paying her dust because she is too busy giving Teddy the look of death, like staring him straight down from across the room, like laser beam right into his head. Leah says it's bid week and the ladies will get one final attempt to show why they are deserving of their exclusive membership at Pastry and Prestige, which is the charity that will be the next day. Each perspective will bring something sweet to share at the event. They will not only be judged on flavor, but they want them to use a family recipe and tell the story of their families, of the perspective's family heritage, pride, and lineage. They will each tell their story during the Q&A, and their answers will factor into the voting at the end of the event. Only 5 women will be awarded the bid to become part of the Graceties. Leah wishes them luck, and they break into their event committees. She meets up with Angela and she laughs that she put Olivia on snack duty. Leah doesn't think that Olivia will get in the way of Angela's bid since she censured her a couple episodes back. She tells Angela she heard that she impressed Giselle and you are not only on track to get a bid, but also an investor. As the ladies are talking, Teddy comes over. He wants to, congratulate Angela and he like touches her, I think on her back or her shoulder. I'm not too sure. She's like, "Don't touch me," quite loudly, and she moves away. And she's like, she doesn't need his congratulations. And folks were definitely starting to stare and look as Leah and Teddy both look confused. Leah asks if she's okay, and Angela's like, apologizes. She's like, she gotta go. She excuses herself. So Angela, she's back on her IG Live, doing it for her peeps, and she says her mom didn't have a lot of money or recipes, but she always kept some rose water and honey in the kitchen. She said it would spice up even the driest of cornbread. So she asked them what they would make before the live ends. And then she talks to Nikki, and Nikki says, after the live's over, Nikki says she knows how important this is to her. And Angela's like, "Oh, that's all right. I know you got a dog in the fight," because she's trying to, go to boarding school. So Leah pops in on the ladies and Angela tells her no peeking. It's a competition, in a little playful tone. And Nikki steps out to let the ladies talk. So Leah says, she's going stir crazy in the house after what happened with Jack. And Angela asks her if she's okay. She asks how's Raymond. She says he's okay and that she opened up to him about Jack. She says now she's just trying to keep herself busy. So if she needs any help on baking duty, and Angela's like, "Nah, girl, I'm okay." And then she tells her that she can't even bake. She's so distracted. And she's like, she has a lot of family stuff going on. Leah asks if that's what that was about earlier with Teddy. And Angela tells her she moved too quickly and getting close to Teddy. So now she's refocusing on her business and Nikki. And Leah admires how she always puts Nikki front and center. She says it seems that her mother was just as driven as her to succeed. And she pulls out that photo that we saw either episode or two ago. It was of Rose, Olivia, and Eve from Graceties Hell Week. Angela didn't realize that Eve had tried out for the membership. And she says then all her dreams were crushed at the Grand Illumination Ball when Teddy, and then, and this is Angela talking, and she stops. And then Leah asks and then Teddy, "What?" And Angela's like, she doesn't have the proof, so she doesn't want to say it, because she's like, once I say it, I can't take it back. It can't be unsaid. It can't be unheard, something to that effect. So Leah says, obviously you think something happened, so tell me. And Angela tells her that she thinks her mother's drug arrest was a setup and that Teddy was involved. We're talking about crack here. Teddy would never be involved. "Oh, and my mom would." And Leah's like, "That's not what I meant. I apologize. I wasn't trying to insinuate that." So Angela stops her and says, their father has a secret and he's terrified that she's going to find out what it is. So Tyrique he's at Angela's house later to talk with Aunt Peggy. And she tells him that she has a confession to make, that she lied when she told him that she never knew Darius Bates. She says they were a couple back in the day when his father, Calvin, worked for Teddy, and Calvin hired Darius to help him out. "Darius worked for my father?" Aunt P's like, "Yeah, sometimes to do Teddy's dirty work." "What kind of dirty work?" And she says Darius never said, but it had to be dark. Darius was using and Calvin was in such a depression. She says she doesn't think his father, Calvin, Tyrique's father, would have taken his own life if he didn't have something truly weighing on him. Okay, so I'm thinking, so he did take his own life? Because I really certainly thought that Teddy was lying. I mean, I guess P could be lying too, but why would she lie? Anyway, I hope we're going to get the answer to that before the series finishes, or that, the season ends. Tyrique asks her why she didn't tell him this to begin with. And she says she has her own demons, and when he came asking, she wasn't ready to face them. She says but she is now, and she sees him struggling, and she's made things worse by lying to him. She says she's sorry. He says he appreciates it, but is there anything else that he can tell her about Darius and his father? And she says, she's sorry. Darius's secrets died with him. Your father was a good man, she tells him. She says a few more kind words, And, he tells her thanks that he needed to hear that. And she's like, listen, I understand if you're upset with me. Tyrique's like, it's not about you. So he says he's just trying to figure out how to deal with the fact that the man that picked up the pieces after his father died is the same one that put him in that position in the first place. So he says his mom used to say people could be two different but equal things at one time. And Aunt P's like, with all due respect to your mom, that's not true. People can present two versions, but the one true version will always show its ugly head. She says a few more words to him and then she walks away. We pan over with Raymond. He's at the police station and he's having a meeting with one of the detectives. He tells him that he was trying to recover some documents that were left in the room. And he tells him it's too late. Teddy's legal team has already petitioned for the release of all documents found at the scene. He says, this is his legal property. And he's sending someone to collect them that day. So Raymond says, oh, okay, good. I'll just reach out to, the good old father-in-law, give him a call. So the detective's like, since I have you here, he has a question. He says the coroner ruled Jack's death an accident, but they believe a woman visited the room, maybe had a drink with them. He's trying to figure out why he would say that. He says housekeeping cleaned the room and it was reset with 3 glasses. His forensic team only recovered 2 glasses. The club manager also reported that there was a lingering scent of women's perfume in the bungalow. He's asking Raymond, you didn't notice any of this? And Raymond is quick on his feet. And he's like, listen, Jack often hired high-end escorts to keep him company. He says he would appreciate it if his family did not find out just how complicated Jack was. Only because we wouldn't want the sordid details of his private life to leave a stain on the large donation that's going to be made to the police foundation in Jack's name. No, we wouldn't want that, the detective replies. And Raymond thanks him for his time. So Tyrique is also there at the same time. Ironically, he gets the envelope that Teddy asked for. And as he's walking out, he passes a chair and we see a flashback to when he was younger, the night that his mother found out his father passed away, and she's crying hysterically. And Tyrique in the present, he kind of collapses in a chair and he starts to hyperventilate a little bit. So Raymond comes out and sees him and he asks him if he's good, and he gives him a cup of water, and Tyrique thanks him. So he says he's doing something for Teddy, and he was just leaving. And then so Tyrique is crying visibly, but not sobbing or anything like that. And Raymond goes to get him some more water. So now the 2 men, they're talking, and Raymond says the worst enemies, because he didn't realize that Tyrique's dad had committed suicide, because they had covered that up all these years. And Raymond says the worst enemy a man will ever face are his own demons. Tyrique said that isn't the man that he knew, and he feels like he's mourning all over again. He thought he got past that in his younger years. And he says maybe he's mourning the relationship with Teddy too. He says he stepped up and took on the father role, and he's telling Raymond he has a way of reeling you back in, and Raymond totally agrees. So the 2 discuss Jack's passing, and Raymond says that last year that Jack was so vulnerable that Teddy manipulated him into being able to bail out Darman. Raymond says he can never get past that. Jack was his oldest friend, yet at the time that he passed, he can't say he knew him at all thanks to Teddy. So he asked to take a look at the documents before he takes them to Franklin Holdings. And they were just having a nice little conversation, chit-chatting and everything. And then Tyrique is like, I was wondering why you were so nice to me. I was like, damn. And we never really have seen them talk or have much conversation. So he's like, Raymond's like, I was just trying to help you out. You was out of it on the chair. And so he's like, listen, we've known each other since boarding school, and this is the longest conversation we've ever had. He says, so they have some more conversation, and we find out that when things went missing at the boarding school, from the dorm, everyone pointed the fingers at the poor black kid, aka Tyrique. So Tyrique says, you didn't take up for me, and Raymond tries to convey to him that he's helping Teddy steal from him now. And Tyrique's like, you still the same fake ass rich kid that you were in boarding school. He's like, you don't got the blazer, basically, same mentality. And he just walks off. So At home, Angela comes in and she finds Aunt P on the stairs, and she's like, oh, how'd it go with Tyrique? And she's like, he forgave her. And she was like, oh, I knew he would. He's such a good guy. And she says that she thought that talking to him would ease the guilt that she's been carrying around all these years, but she still couldn't tell him the whole truth. She did not want to tell him that she killed somebody. She says walking around there free, and she took another person's life. She's conflicted with the whole thing, which, you totally should be. So Aunt P says she prayed on it, and there's only one thing left to do. She's going to turn herself in, and she tells Angie that she can't do or say anything to stop her. So we go to another scene, and Leah walks in on Raymond, and he's looking at a photo, and it's actually a picture of him and Jack, and he said he's never noticed how lonely Tyrique looked in the pictures. And like I said, it's Raymond and Jack, and Tyrique's kind of like off in the background in the picture. And so Leah takes a look at that particular picture, and she's like, oh yeah, that's from Parents Week. That was always really a tough time for him, obviously. So Raymond feels guilty, and that Raymond feels guilty that he feels free now that Jack is gone, and he's one of his closest friends, and everybody expects him to be torn up about it. But like I said, he's feeling free. He ain't feeling torn up about it. So Leah tells him, listen, your feelings are valid. And he tells her that Tyrique was sent to retrieve the share transfers from Jack to Teddy, for Teddy. For some reason, Tyrique is still loyal to Teddy and wishes he can warn him. And yes, thank you, because I said it before and I told you I would say it again. I was thinking the same thing. Teddy does not care about anyone, and poor Tyrique is like, I'ma stand beside him. So Raymond says that he has to get out ahead of Teddy, because that man will hurt anyone in his path just to protect his own interests. And Leah's like, she's not blind to what her father has done, and even Angela has gone back to not trusting him. She says that, she can't just stop trusting him. She can't just stop trusting him. It's her dad, basically. He wouldn't hurt the family. He wouldn't hurt you, Raymond says. You might want to ask your mother about that. Yikes. Everyone seems to know more than Leah, but I feel like Leah don't want to know. She don't want to know her dad's a bad guy. She just always wanted to look at Teddy like he's just wonderful when he has personally screwed her over. We've seen that this season. So Angela is trying to convince Aunt P that she can't turn herself in. Nate is there, and Angela is like, can you please try to get through to her? So Nate's like, being on the inside changes you, and I'm not talking about loss of freedom. I'm talking about deep down in your soul. He says that he's just starting to feel like he's getting back to what he was, because, there he feels appreciated and all the positive things you can feel from being out versus being locked up. And then he says that, no, Angela says there has to be another way, basically for her to atone for this. And she asked her to think on it, like just give it to the morning or the next day, I think is what she said. And Aunt P agrees, but I ain't believe her. The look on her face was like, I'm gonna say this to appease you so you can get out my face, but I'm not trying to hear nothing you gotta say. So Leah goes to see Mama Rose. Child, if I was Mama Rose, I'd have been like, y'all folks only come to see me when you want something. But I don't know. She's on medication. She's off medication. Maybe she remembers. Maybe she doesn't. But Mama Rose was too busy, like I said, hiding shortbread cookies. She says they only let her have sugar-free Jell-O. And she's like, that reminds her Pastry and Prestige must be coming up. And coming up soon. And Leah's like, yeah, it's today. And the Grand Illumination Ball is right around the corner. She says that she wanted to ask her about the Grand Illumination Ball of '84 when she was inducted into the Graceties. Evelyn Vaughn was also arrested that night. Rose says that means that she missed the cotillion. Tell me about Lauren's dress, because Rose is like, you can tell she ain't trying to talk about it. But Leah pushes her, and she's like, she needs to know what Teddy did. And Rose, she starts getting agitated. And then she accidentally knocks, like, I think she was having a couple of tea over. She's like, leave it. So she tells Leah that Teddy was going to run off with Eve that night, and he was going to abandon them. And she struggled so hard. She wanted to stick to her medication so that she could be a mother to her again. But every time she started to get better, she started to remember. She says unspeakable things happened that night, things that she doesn't want to remember. things that she needs to be free of. And Leah's asking her what happened to that night. And Rose starts, moaning and groaning, and like she's like, oh. And then we see that flashback that we saw earlier this season when Leah walks in and Rose's hands are bleeding because she's been, obsessing over the flowers, and then the orderlies coming in, that whole thing. So Mama is freaking out, and Leah is still trying to get answers. And then Teddy comes in, and I'm like, where the heck did he come from? I'm like, he must have had told him at the desk, like, if my daughter comes here, give me a ring-a-ding-ding so I can scoot on over. And he did just that, because he came right in the nick of time and put an end to all of that. So I'm guessing, the staff that came and gave her some medication, because the next thing you know, we see Leah and Teddy in the hallway, and he's asking her what she's doing. She says, maybe I'm just trying to have one less secret in the family. And she asked if he was involved in Evelyn's arrest. He says, of course not. He got Eve the best lawyer in Boston, and he got her released. She asked him if he was going to leave, if he was going to leave with Eve that night. But Teddy, bobs and weaves, he don't really answer the question. He asked where this is coming from, and she says that, she's trying to give her sister some peace. Then they have some more conversation. Teddy slides down to the floor and sits while they're talking, and Leah says that they can't hide things from each other. Like, that's not how a family works. That's not how any of this works. So he says that Rose needs to heal in peace, and that he knows that Angela wants truth, but that will do nothing but bring more harm to Rose. And I'm thinking to myself, how is Rose gonna know that Angela found out that Rose is in the facility? So he had hoped welcoming Angela into the family would quell her suspicion, but it seems that she's not able to leave the past in the past. Blah, blah, blah. And then he tells her, Angela, even though we've come to love and adore her, and she's great and she's wonderful and all that, Angela no longer has a place at Oak Bluffs or in this family. He tells her to get rid of her way, or his way will be worse. So in tears, like, Leah walks away. She's like, she has no words. Now, first, before I get to my original thought, I'm like, I don't know. Let me go say what I was going to say, which was, I wondered, did Rose have some part in what happened to Eve? Because everyone is looking at Teddy for what, for obvious reasons. But I'm just curious, because she said unspeakable things happened that night. I totally missed that other thought. So if I come back to it, I'll come back to it. If I don't, I don't. I may have to cut out that huge gap, or I might not. Anyway, so Olivia comes to see Raymond, and she says, that he's been avoiding her. And he's like, listen, my plate has been full. She asked that if he's retrieved Jack's stock transfer paperwork. And he says he's been cleaning up after her. And she says that you made a mess of Darman, and she handled the Jack situation the way it ought to be handled. He's like, what's that supposed to mean? He's like, did you? She's like, that's just such a hurtful thing to suggest. So he says things will be handled on the timeline that he sees fit. And she's about to get her bag when he says, do you realize the police are already tracking the fact that a woman was in Jack's room that night, the night that he passed away? And he says he can destroy the evidence and that has her DNA on it, that puts her at the crime scene, or he can give it over to the police. And she tells him, because first she's like, I don't know how we got to this place. She's like, I just need you to be my good boy. Because he was like, it's only one big dog. I mean, it was going back and forth. And like I said, she was like, when he said that about turning in the evidence, she was like, I just want you to be my good boy. He was like, I'm done being your good boy. And realistically, there's only one thing that he can do, which is destroy the evidence, because if he turns it into the cops now, he's tampered with the crime scene. He's tampered with evidence. Like, am I wrong? So we're at Pastry and Prestige, and Olivia and Leah and Giselle come over to Angela's table, and Olivia starts out the gate. Pound cake, very down home. Is this your best family recipe? Actually, this is a new tradition. I created the recipe especially for this occasion, Angela says. The rules were not to your liking, Olivia asked. The rules were very clear, but she doesn't come from a family with a big book of recipes that were handed down. Her mother didn't bake. Her signature was instant grits. But she did spend most of her time in the kitchen creating her hair care formulas from scratch. So she used Mama Eve's original conditioner recipe for inspiration. The dessert is made with rose water, coconut, coconut oil and honey. 3 of the key ingredients that she likes to think represent her passion, constancy, and sweet inspiration. Olivia asks what should inspire them to give her one of the 5 spots to join the Graceties. So, Angela has the gift of gab, and she gives some long, beautiful, heartfelt answer, and Olivia thanks her, and she begins to walk away, and Nikki reminds her, she's like, oh, you forgot to take a bite. So she's like, oh, yeah, I forgot. So she takes a bite, and you can see it in her face. She cannot deny it. She says, this is good. It's very good. Like, she could not even front. And now she says, pound cakes is one of my all-time favorite desserts. Oh, really, Olivia? Because, and then she kind of rolled her eyes and walked away. But you could tell she was in love with that cake. Like I said, she could not deny it. She took a bite and she was hooked. So Leah stops to talk to Angela, and she tells her that she doesn't have anything to worry about with the Graceties. And she tells her she also spoke to Teddy about that night with Angela's mother being arrested, and can we say a wrong place, a wrong time. So Leah tells her Teddy said he paid for the best lawyer in Boston. So there's no logic to him setting him up. That's not necessarily true, but Angela gives her about 1,000 reasons why, his reputation and just a bunch of reasons. So ironically, Leah says, sometimes to feel free from the past, we must face the cost of an uncomfortable history. Oh, you don't say, Leah. So she says she wanted to settle the past and bring their family together and move their family forward. There's no moving forward without truth, Angela tells her. And Leah just like, let's just leave it alone for now. But Angela tells her, listen, until I find out exactly what happened with Mama Eve, I'm gonna look under every rock. I will turn over this island and shake it out if she has to. And then I think she kind of walks away. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know if I would have said all of that right before they did the biz, but that's just me. So at the same event, Raymond approaches Tyrique, and he wants to offer him an apology. He says, Raymond was never cruel to him growing up, but that he did cover for Jack. He says, he kept quiet about him being the dorm thief. He says Jack was bored, rich kid, he was bored, and Raymond, felt like he couldn't choose his friends. Their family had such a rich history, so he didn't want to hurt the family business. He felt like he couldn't choose his friends. And child, it was a lot. So long story, or I try to make the long story short, Jack accused Tyrique because he knew Tyrique was innocent, so when they searched, they wouldn't find anything, but Raymond felt guilty, and he reported him anonymously, and in turn got Jack expelled, and Tyrique was like, I thought he transferred. He was like, that's what they call it when your family makes large donations. So Raymond says that, he should have been honest with him, and he should have had his back a long time ago. He tells them, don't let your loyalty to Teddy ruin you. And then Teddy walks up as they're having the conversation, and Tyrique tells him, I have Jack's paperwork, and I can drop it to you later that evening. And both Raymond and I were like, okay, Tyrique, that's how you're going to play it? So the perspectives, they step up one by one to see if they are going to be one of the 5 that makes it. The judges, they're going to hold up wooden spoons. A black spoon means you are out, and a lavender spoon means you're in. So we go through a whole bunch of ladies, and when we get to Angela, she gets 2 black spoons and 2 lavender spoons. And Olivia says, Madam President, the deciding vote to make Angela the 5th and final initiate is yours. And Leah, she takes one look at Teddy, and she gives her the black spoon. And Angela's shocked. She runs off in tears. And even Olivia had a look of surprise on her face, like, you were supposed to give it a vote. But I was so disappointed. So later that night, Raymond meets up with Tyrique, and he's like, you had me fooled for a minute. Me too, child. So Tyrique says, what he said hit him. He doesn't know what his loyalty to Teddy cost him, but his father's loyalty cost him his life. So Raymond says he appreciates it, and Tyrique tells him, listen, I still have to deliver some of the paperwork to Teddy, so it doesn't look, he doesn't suspect anything. But without Jack's signature, he can't take over your shares, which means he can't control your company, and you're still in the game. So Tyrique says he's done with Teddy, and Raymond's like, nah, don't be done. You would be a good inside man. They could be partners, take him down together, and make a whole lot of money doing it. And Tyrique says he's in, and he shakes on it. So back at home, Raymond takes that signature page and throws it in the fireplace and lets it burn. And he tells Leah that he kept Teddy from taking Jack's shares, and he could still get Darman back. And then when he turns to look at her, ask her, what's wrong? Because she's not sobbing, but she is a face full of tears. So now we flash to our end scene. Tyrique shows up, and he says that he is sorry, that she didn't get the Graceties. He knows how much it meant to her. We're at Angela's place now, and he asked her if she's okay, and she's like, she doesn't know what she is. So he's like, he knows that he's been absent. He's been dealing with a lot of stuff for his dad. He has a new way of handling things, of handling his anger and over what happened to his father, and he is done shutting her out. I believe I lost my spot, but I think that's what he said. He's done with pushing her away. So he knows he has a lot of making up to do, and he kisses Angela. She don't say nothing, and then he kisses her, and then she's like, I thank you for sharing that. It means a lot. We'll talk. And she walks away. And you know who's in the house? Nate's in the house. So as Tyrique looks tight, he walks away. She goes inside. Nate asks, how'd it go? And he looks at her and he's like, you didn't get the bid. She's like, no incubator, no Graceties, and she doesn't know what she's gonna do. He's like, listen, it's been a hard day all around. He's like, Aunt Piggy, you know, Aunt Piggy didn't turn herself in. She knew you would try to stop her. So she left letters for, not Leah, Nikki and Angie. And Angela sits down to read the letter, and we hear Aunt P's voice read it. We're not gonna go over everything that she said, but while she's reading it, we see Aunt P, she's sitting in the car reading her Bible, and then she gets out and she walks into the police station, and we end with Angie finishing the letter and crying on Nate's shoulder. Now, my one final question was, well, we're gonna make it the final question because we're gonna wrap this up because I didn't really want to go this long, and I may have to edit this up a little bit. Why is it that Giselle couldn't invest in Angela's business even if she didn't become a Graceties? That's just my thoughts, and please put your thoughts and your comments and your questions down in the comment section. Episode 11 has already aired, so I hope you'll come back and join me for my review. It was really, really good. I actually did watch it already, and then next week is episode 12 and the season finale. If you made it this far, put a spoon emoji in the comments for the Graceties Spoon of Doom. While you're here, please check out some of my other content. Thank you, and before you go, like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate you. Peace.